I want to start by inviting each one of you to become a pilgrim tonight, a peregrino, so that you can come with me on this journey as I share with you my experience of walking the Camino Santiago de Compostela and my experience of spiritual direction. So will you become a peregrino tonight? Will you be a pilgrim? Sure. All right, wonderful. I am Lucy Dominguez. I'm the founder of Light Companions on the Road, which is a ministry of spiritual directors that seek to journey with Christians and help them in their relationships with God. So I want to start by thanking Wordnet Productions for the opportunity to be here, for allowing me to be here so that I can share and speak about something that is dear to my heart, something that I love, in that spiritual direction. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And so I'll begin this journey by sharing with you about my honeymoon. So my husband and I decided to do the Camino Santiago de Compostela for our honeymoon. So we walked the 500 miles in 29 days. Now, Camino Santiago de Compostela, some of you may know it as the Way of St. James. And so what this is it's a pilgrimage that pilgrims take on. They go on this journey and they travel to the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. This is in Galicia, in the northern west of Spain, okay? And so there are many routes that take you through this. Some are easier, some are harder. We decided to take the easiest one. But all the routes take you to the same place, which is the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela. And so the day after our wedding, we flew to Rome. And I have to share this with you because I am extremely grateful for this experience and this opportunity. So we flew to Rome, where we had the honor of meeting Pope Francis, and we received a blessing from him. And so after that, we traveled to France, where we started walking our Camino. And so you and I and everybody who's listening, we are all travelers, right? We are all on a journey. Some of us even traveled here, right? Some of us has to travel here. We are always on the move. And so some of us, our families, have traveled miles and miles to be here, right? Some of us live miles and miles away from the place that we were born, right? So we are people on the move. And as Christians, we are followers of Jesus, right? We follow in his footsteps. So while we're on this journey as travelers in this spiritual journey, well, we get tired, right? We get tired, and so we need a place where we can rest. And so how many of you have ever been on a road trip? You've traveled by car and been on a road trip. Okay. So as you're on this road, right, you encounter what? You encounter that golden M, right? McDonald's. Restaurants, with signs of restaurants that are saying, hey, come, we'll give you some nourishment, right? You'll encounter hotels, right, that say, come in, we'll give you some rest here. And so, when you're on the Camino Santiago de Compostela, these places are called albergues, okay? And so albergues, they're hostels. You share these shared large rooms with other people. A lot of the time they are free. There is no charge. They simply have a little donation box where you can drop your donation. There's also something called hostales. These are private rooms. And of course there's hotels and different levels of hotels. Now, when you're on your spiritual journey, this is called spiritual direction. And spiritual direction is the place where you can find some rest. It's the place that can provide some nourishment and refreshment. It's the place that can energize you so that you can continue on your spiritual journey, okay? So how many of you, raise your hand, how many of you have heard of spiritual direction? Okay. Yes, I have encountered Catholics that have never heard of spiritual direction. They've never heard of this. But I have encountered other Catholics that they have heard of spiritual direction, possibly at a presentation somewhere, but they don't know what it is. So let's go ahead and talk about that. what is spiritual direction, okay? And so spiritual direction can be described as the help that one person gives to another to assist in discovering, in appreciating, and responding to God's presence in our life. So we say that God comes to us disguised in our daily life, right? God is in everything, every moment of our day. He's in the people when we encounter. He's in everything that surrounds us and everything that we experience. So the spiritual director can help us to be able to recognize him in our daily life. Spiritual direction invites us to bring every part of our life, right? It's a place of noticing. And it's a place of vulnerability and courage, because oftentimes in this space is where we get to share things that we wouldn't normally share with others. In spiritual direction, the primary focus is our relationship with God. That is the focus. And so therefore, God is the director. He's the director. The spiritual director is only an instrument. And so in spiritual direction, there are two people that are listening to the Holy Spirit. All right, so why do people take on these journeys? Why do people go on the Camino Santiago de Compostela? Why do people go to spiritual direction? And so I'll share with you that when my husband and I were walking the Camino, right, we encountered people from all over the world. It was so beautiful, from everywhere. And so as you're walking, as you're on the way, somebody behind you catches up. They catch up to you, so you start talking to them, you know? Or maybe you catch up to the person that's in front of you or the group that's in front of you, and you start talking, right? And so one of the most common questions on the Camino is, why are you walking the Camino? Why are you here, right? Why are you doing this? And so it's just so fascinating to learn why people take on these journeys. So my husband and I encountered a young man who was addicted to porn. He was addicted to porn, and he was on the Camino because he wanted to overcome that addiction. That is why he was walking. We encountered a man who didn't believe in God. Just God didn't exist. He was so sure of it. But he knew that there was something out there. He knew that there was something bigger, more. And so he was on the Camino seeking, looking for that more. We also encounter a daughter and a father. And they were there because they wanted to reconnect. So they took on this journey to reconnect. And so for my husband and I, the reason that we decided to go on the Camino is because we really wanted a strong foundation for our marriage. We wanted to get to know each other better. We wanted something that would make our marriage strong, that would give us a good start. And so that is why my husband and I decided to take this journey. And just like on the Camino, there are many reasons why people decide to go to spiritual direction. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that. So some people go to spiritual direction because they are seeking a deeper relationship with God. Okay, and so as an example, so I am someone that attends Mass regularly. I go to Mass regularly. I pray every day. And I'm part of a ministry. I'm active in a ministry. I serve, right? But I just need something more. My heart desires just something else, something more. That can be a desire or a call to deepen our relationship with God. And so a spiritual director understands that the most important thing is that relationship with God. So the primary intent of spiritual direction is to guide us in having a deepening intimacy with God. Together with the spiritual director, we can explore God's presence, God's voice, and the activity that's happening in our life. Through prayer and conversation, listening, and the asking of questions, our spiritual director can help us to respond to God and to take the steps to further our relationship with God, right? Another reason why is time of transition, right? In time of transition, there's a lot of change. And so some examples, when somebody loses their job, they have to change their job. There's a lot of change that comes with that. There's a lot of questions. What should I do now? Where should I go now, right? What should I do? I mean, there's a lot of change. Or for example, when somebody's going through a divorce, that is a lot of change, right? I mean, drastically. There's also, if we go through an accident, that brings a lot of change to our life. Oftentimes, if we have an accident, we are forced to stop. We are forced to pause, and we are forced to take some time, right? So we all have these moments. We've all gone through these moments, these seasons of where we need to make big decisions, right? Times of transition. And so these big decisions are opportunities to consider our options, to consider our values, and to consider our desires. So spiritual direction will help us discern. It'll help us discern and evaluate those decisions so that we could move forward in wisdom. Another reason why people go to spiritual direction is because they can't pray, right? Sometimes I really want to pray, but when I start praying, my mind just goes everywhere. It's really busy, and I start thinking of this and that. Then I try to go back, and my mind goes off again, right? We have a really hard time praying. Or I really want to pray, but I'm so tired, I'm falling asleep, right? Or maybe we are praying, but we don't feel that God is speaking back to us. We don't feel a movement back, right? We don't feel that he's responding. And so sometimes we call these, we can call it dryness, time in the desert, right? Or it could be time of desolation. So sometimes inner barriers and external circumstances may be getting in the way of our spiritual growth. So a spiritual director can help us identify the reason why we're in this spiritual plateau. And they may be able to offer us tools that can help us move into a place where we're moving again, where we're going so that we can continue on this journey that we're on. Another reason can be that somebody is trying to find their purpose in life, right? They're trying to understand what their call is, what their vocation is. So questions like, what is God calling me to be? What is God calling me to do? Where does God need me the most? Those are very, very important questions. When we find our unique purpose, our identity intersects with our mission, and we experience profound contentment and joy. So a spiritual director can help us explore and make some space for our passions, for our desires. They'll help us discover what our call is. Another reason can be somebody who wants to explore and wants to interpret their experiences of God. So I'm pretty sure that this has happened to all of us, where we go to a retreat. It's a wonderful retreat, right? Maybe there was a word that really touched us. Maybe somebody prayed over us. And so when we come out of this retreat, we're on fire. We have so much joy, and we want to tell everyone. We want to tell everyone what we experienced, what we heard. And sometimes we don't end up telling anyone because we're not sure who to tell. We don't know if we tell this person, will they understand? Will they make fun of me? So we end up just keeping it to ourselves. And so spiritual direction is the place, again, a safe place where you can share these experiences, where you can talk about these things. A spiritual director will listen to you without criticizing you or judging you. They will listen attentively and compassionately and prayerfully. They'll help you make sense of those experiences. So for me, the first time that I decided to go to spiritual direction was because I wanted to know what God was calling me to. I wanted to discover my vocation. This was a time in my life when I felt really attracted to religious life. So I would go to conferences and I would see sisters, I would see nuns, and I used to think, oh my God, they're so cool. Nuns are so cool. I used to think I could see myself there. I could see myself doing that. You know, I had this attraction to that kind of life. But guess what? I was also attracted to boys. There were so many cute boys. So I really wanted to know if God was calling me to religious life or if he was calling me to have a family. So that is why I went. Now, who is a spiritual director? Who are these people? Who is a spiritual director? So the gift of spiritual direction is a gift for the whole people of God, for everyone, for all of us. There are priests who are spiritual directors. There are sisters, nuns. There are deacons. But it's not just clergy. There's also lay people who are spiritual directors. anyone, regardless of their vocational background, can be called to the ministry of spiritual direction. There are great programs, just like the one that I am in, that I'm about to finish in June. It's called the Art of Spiritual Formation Program, and it's offered by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Orange and Loyola Marymount University. These are programs that train people who feel called to the ministry of spiritual direction. Now, how do I find a spiritual director? Let's say that I'm going through all these transitions, or, how do I find somebody, right? I'm going to give you a few tips. The first one, I'm going to invite you to pray. Pray. Pray to God and ask Him to guide you to the right person, the person that is going to help you continue on this journey, the person that will accompany you on this journey, okay? And then I invite you to start asking, but ask people you know. So go to your parish. Go to your parish and ask at your parish, hey, do we have spiritual directors here at this parish? Ask. You can also ask friends, people you know, hey, do you have a spiritual director? And if they do, who is this person? Can you recommend someone, right? You ask. Or you can also go to a ministry like the one that I am part of, which is called Light Companions on the Road. If you go to our website, you can see biographies of spiritual directors. You can read about them, learn about them. You can see what languages they speak, when they're available. You could also give us a call. We'll spend some time speaking with you. We'll get to know you, and then we'll refer you to somebody, a spiritual director that's a good match for you. So there are different ways. Now, as we continue on this journey, as you continue with me on this journey, I want us to circle back to the Camino Santiago de Compostela, because I want to share with you one of the most important lessons I learned on the Camino and one of the most powerful experiences I had. So as I was researching the Camino before we went, one of the things I learned is that on the Camino there is a ritual. It's a ritual called Cruz de Ferro. That's an iron cross. And so what it is you select a rock. You select a rock from home and you bring it with you and you carry it all along the way. And so when you arrive at Cruz de Ferro, at this iron cross, you let it go. And this rock is supposed to represent any burden, any fear. It can be anything an obstacle in your life. It can be anything that separates you, that doesn't allow you from experiencing God's love. So you bring this with you and you leave it there. So when I learned about this, I said, gosh, I really want to experience this. So I told my husband about it and he said, let's do it. So we went ahead and we selected our rock and we carried our rock, right? And so we're on this journey. We finally get to the day where we're going to walk to Cruz de Ferro. This is the day. We're very excited. And so even though we went during the summertime, it rained on that day. Pouring rain, and it was freezing. It was so cold that I grabbed my socks, extra socks, and I put them on my hands because it was just so cold that day. And so we're walking, it's muddy. I mean, it was a very difficult day to walk. At some point, my husband says to me, if you want to stop, we could just stay somewhere here and then we continue. We can go on tomorrow, right? And we can arrive there tomorrow. And let me tell you, if I'm really honest with you, with all my heart, I wanted to stop, with all my heart. But we had really been preparing for this moment. I had been praying for months. And so I thought, no, we have to do this, right? So we decided to keep going. And so we did, we keep going. And so we finally get to Cruz de Ferro. We finally get to the Iron Cross. There it is. At this point, the Iron Cross is this hill full of rocks. Because remember, thousands of people walk the Camino. Thousands of people live this experience. Now it's just this mountain full of rocks. And just to remind you that it was raining, they were slippery rocks. They're not stable rocks. So my husband says, okay, you want to go first? I said, okay. So there I go, crawling up, slowly, very slowly crawling up. And I finally get up to the cross and I get on my knees and I let go of the rock. And as I let go of the rock, what I was letting go of was something that would disturb my days, something that would keep me awake, something that would really affect me. And I can tell you in that moment when I got on my knees, I just started crying and crying and crying. And what I experienced, it's almost difficult to explain because it was so powerful and so unique to me. But I can tell you that I experienced freedom. I experienced a lot of peace. And just, a sense of there was nothing heavy anymore, light. And so I get down, and now it's my husband's turn, right? And as he's crawling up there, one thing that I noticed is people were walking, and they would look at the cross, but they wouldn't stop. They would keep walking. Other people would come by, they would stop, they would take a picture, and then keep walking. And then there was those that actually stopped, had the rock, and did the whole thing, right? And for us, we decided to live the experience. So for me, spiritual direction has been a place where I have left a lot of rocks. It's a place where I have unloaded my pack so that my journey can be lighter. I've been in spiritual direction for over 10 years, on and off, depending on what's going on with my life. I've had spiritual directors who have been priests, sisters, lay people, female and male. Spiritual direction for me has been a grace. It has been a true blessing in my life. It's a place where I have been myself, just like this, just the way I am. I don't have to fake anything. I don't have to try hard. It's a place where I could say anything. It's safe. It's a place where I have found rest. It's a place where I have laughed. I have laughed very hard, and I have also cried. It's a place where I have been angry. And it's the place where I have been heard. I have felt heard. My spiritual director has journeyed with me through some of the most painful moments in my life. So I can tell you that in many ways, spiritual direction has saved me. It has saved me from losing my family. It has saved me from losing relationships and even from losing myself. Spiritual direction for me has been life-giving, life-giving. And just like the experience with Cruz de Ferro, some of us listening today, right, we'll have listened and we'll continue on our journey without stopping. Others, just like on Cruz de Ferro, will continue on the journey and maybe stop for a moment and ponder. But others that listen tonight will have heard this as an invitation to stop and to explore spiritual direction. So, my fellow travelers, peregrinos, I hope that this presentation inspired you to try to learn more about spiritual direction, to want to experience spiritual direction.
How do you differentiate between spiritual direction and counseling?
Okay, that's a very good question, and that's a question that's very common. So, the focus of spiritual direction is the relationship with God. And so, in counseling, the purpose is the tools to heal if there's something that you need to heal. But in spiritual direction, the question is, what is it? What is the thing, right? What is the thing that we need to heal? In spiritual direction, you go to the source of it. You don't just, and counseling is wonderful, but you don't go straight to work. You discover what's underneath it. So that's a big difference between those two things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Lucy, if I can understand you, you're talking about in counseling, there could be therapy as well, right?
Yes.
Because you said you don't go directly to work at it or work on it.
Yeah.
But is it okay to have a spiritual direction at the same time if I also seek counseling as well? What would be your advice to those people? Because there might be some problems that I'm going through and I might need professional help.
Yes.
And can you also consider spiritual direction as a professional help as well?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that question. So, yes, You can do both, and if you need to, you should do both. And I am someone who has often done both. So again, spiritual direction, the focus is our relationship with God, and a counselor, a professional, can help us focus more on whatever the issue is that we're having, whatever the need is. So I say 100% do both if you need to. I have, and it's been wonderful to be able to work with a professional therapist, counselor, and then to have that space with my spiritual director. Those two views, I mean, they're like I said earlier, life-giving. I mean, I obviously don't want to talk about my personal issues, right? But through my experience going to spiritual direction and talking about, you know, a certain thing that I am going through, again, this person prays with me. This person helps me discern where God is moving me in that area. And now when I go to my therapist with my counselor, this person, the listening is a little different. And the questions are a little different because, again, this person is trying to help you find the tools that will heal that part, that will fix that thing, right? So I don't know if I answered the question, but those are how they're
Yes, Lucy, yes,
differentiated.
definitely. You know, you do it. You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
How would you suggest I could break through when we have a hard time trusting? Because when sometimes people don't trust you that much, just maybe because of your past or your look, how do you get to that point to where you can find that comfortability with your spiritual director?
Yeah, thank you for that. So in spiritual direction can be very similar to counseling in this part where you might learn of a spiritual director, you can meet with them, you talk to them, and one of the first things they'll do is they'll tell you, let's meet 3 times. And then we can decide if we're comfortable with each other, if we are a good fit. If we're not, then I can recommend someone, right? Because again, the purpose is you and your relationship with God. So if you find that this is a good fit, you slowly start gaining that trust. You build on it. But it's somebody who's a good fit with you. And you'll feel that. You'll sense that.
Do you recommend couples having separate spiritual directors or having the same?
Yes, so the recommendation is do spiritual direction separately. Remember, in spiritual direction, this is a place where you get to say everything and anything you want. And perhaps in your marriage, you don't say everything and anything, right? So I would recommend that you do it separately. Also, you have a unique relationship with God. Everybody's relationship with God is different. So take this time, make it as a gift for yourself and do this separately. That would be my recommendation. I hope to continue to see you down on the road. I hope to see you on the Camino. Thank you so much. God bless you and buen camino.
Thank you. Thanks, Lucy. I think we are coming to end with the questions. I don't have any more.
Okay.
You clarified all my
Good.
doubts. Thanks always and blessings. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.